Everyone. Welcome to New Canaan Library tonight. Before we begin, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. That would be great. And note the exits from the room to your right and left, right out onto the street, and back through the concourse, same way you came in. Okay, so our speakers tonight believe that now that AI has a will, it's up to us to find a way. For decades, we built software that did exactly what we told it to do and nothing else. Agentic AI breaks that bargain. These are systems that remember, reason, can pursue goals. They are colleagues, occasionally in need of supervision, reshaping the meaning of work and creating new sources of value for those who learn how to work alongside them. Authors Christophe, Kolb, and Rosen have drawn on first-hand experience at the frontier of agentic AI to write the book Cognitive Kin: How to Work, Win, and Make Meaning with Agentic AI. Christophe is the founder and CEO of Thaler, a global accelerator for digital transformation that brings AI and deep tech from incubation to large-scale deployment. He works with Fortune 500 companies, holds a PhD in computation and neural systems from Caltech, a degree in physics and philosophy from Oxford, and lives with his family right here in New Canaan. Jan is Chief Innovation and Transformation Officer at Thaler, where he designs and deploys agentic AI architectures. Before joining Thaler, he had led major engineering efforts at Venmo and PayPal, where he drove major platform modernization. Jan holds a master's in computer science from Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden. And now please help me welcome Christophe and Jan.
Thank you for the most gracious introduction. Truly special to be here for our inaugural, everybody can hear me all right, book talk. Just right out of the gate, a big shout out to Mickey Porter and her fabulous colleagues here at the New Canaan Library, the work that you do each and every day, Mickey and team, managing this highly capable institution, the event planning, the cultural programming truly enriches our lives, and a big thank you for that. Also, gratefully acknowledging our event partner and co-host and sponsor, Tricia from Elm Bookstores. Elm Street Books, an independent bookstore, indeed the platonic idea for an independent, successful bookstore, and one of my favorite, if not the favorite, store on Elm Street, and please everybody make a point of visiting it. And a big thanks to all of you for coming out on this Wednesday evening, taking time out of your evening to join us. Greatly honored by the turnout, truly humbled by the interest, and our job, Jan, this is a little creepy up there. Of course, this is just in keeping with the subject matter at hand, right? AI. It's sort of cool, little creepy, all at the same time. And also thank you for already buying our book. So we managed to vault. We are first-time authors, right? So we're the newbies, so to speak, right? And just managed to vault onto the literary scene. At what was our 64, and there's a very angry caterpillar. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's a very hungry caterpillar, angry because we unseated it. And Kolb Turbine, Tricia's Irish compatriot, who's going to be here, I believe, next week, right? And wedged between Turbine and the hungry caterpillar. So thank you for that. Now, this is embarrassing if I am in tech, so I can operate the slides, which is fantastic. Our job is to make the next hour as information-rich and hopefully informative as possible. So we've got an agenda, a little bit about the book itself, why we wrote it. This is a book about AI. You can just imagine there are hundreds of books and articles about AI, and my daily job is to keep abreast of the literature. In fact, I spend 2 hours every morning just, and this is my field, this is my passion, this is my background, right? This is what I do for a living. And by 10 o'clock, I'm already exhausted just trying to keep up with what's happening. So I just blink for 1 minute, it feels like I'm already asleep for a year, right? That's how fast and furious the pace of innovation is. what the book is about, and then how to make use of the book. So you don't necessarily have to read it all cover to cover. There's also a digital companion that will explain to you how to get the most beneficial use out of the book. Very important, this is the main thrust of our argument, is that agentic AI as opposed to generative AI changes everything. It really is a sea change. It's a once in a generation pivotal moment, and we're going to explain it. So we're going to offer a definition and also provide a analytical framework for how to grasp what's happening here. So I'm trying to rush through a couple of the theory slides, but it's very important that we all sort of get a good sense of what this new capability is about and how to differentiate it from other forms of AI. And then what we're trying to get to as quickly as possible is a short demonstration of agentic engineering in action. So this is going to be software that writes itself. It's recursive, right? And if you haven't seen it, or if you use it at work, you will say, of course, I'm using agentic AI in engineering practices in order to amplify my teams, my organization's productivity. And if you haven't seen it, perhaps, right, it will be nigh indistinguishable from magic. So it's truly magical. So we're trying to get to this because that's the aha moment, and it just makes the whole subject matter come to life. And then we're going to ask us, what are the implications, the pluses, the minuses, the benefits, and also the risks associated with that kind of capability. And then, since it's a quote-unquote toy example, it's a real example, we always ask ourselves, especially if some of you in the audience are in finance or in banking, right, or are tracking the economic impact, right, of what's been happening here, we ask ourselves questions: what would have to hold true for this quote-unquote toy example to scale into the world of macro, to have real-life implications, right? I know everybody is concerned about, is this job losses? How is this going to affect the employment environment at large? The two main challenges that we'll be addressing, it's we call it the Waymo moment for the IT services industry. Can you trust what's happening, right? This is all about trust, governance, responsibility, and cars have been able to drive themselves for many years, right? But now you sort of, if you haven't been inside a Waymo, maybe sort of just a quick show of hands, has anybody been in a Waymo before? Yeah, that's you see it right there, right? So you get used to it. It's a little spooky, right? It's sort of, ghost hands, no hands on the wheel. Mom, look at this. And the very same thing is now happening. Autonomy at work is unfolding. And then one of the, Jan is going to then give a little bit of a master class, because that's really his job, working with lots of our clients on one of the most stubborn problems, right? That we are all this the consumerization of AI. We're all familiar with Gen AI and what it can do to our personal productivity, right? But does it truly scale into the enterprise context, right? So we all feel, at least that's the productivity illusion, 10 to 15, maybe even 20% more productive, right? Emails are flowing, right? My spreadsheets are looking better. My output is greater. But when we all put ourselves together in the organization, does the organization, so, is your stock up 10 or 15%? Is sales up 10 or 15%, right? So, a lot of, benefits are gained by individuals, but, does this really translate, into the enterprise, into the organizational concept? And if time permits, there's a lot of fear, doubt, and uncertainty in the industry. There's obviously the merchants of AI there, telling you things, for their own, commercial gains, right? But we're trying to lead, and we're trying to say, maybe just, try to ignore as much of the hype as possible, and we're going to show you some data from the field of how this is now truly, changing the way we work. So this is what we call, the advent of tiny teams, right? So work teams are shrinking because AI can do a lot of the work. But Jevons's paradox, right? When a commodity becomes commercially more attainable, the utility gets priced lower, there's also going to be a heightened demand for it. So I think there's going to be hopefully a very hopeful story here at the end of the day. Work teams may be shrinking because AI can do a lot of the work, but there will be an increase in overall demand for human labor. And that's our humanist take, and we're already seeing this in the data. We're trying to back it up as much as we can. Just a little bit about you can judge this book by its cover. There's an art historian sitting in the audience who not only shares my last name, but also my love for Northern and Italian Renaissance. And when Ariane, my wife, suggested that we should be using a Giuseppe Arcimboldo, and this is the roughly this painting, The Librarian, very apt here. This is an ode also to Mickey Porter and her colleagues, and it's very apropos. I think that we're giving a talk about AI inside a library. Mickey, we've got, what, 125,000 unique volumes, I believe. This is sort of a relatively well-stocked municipal public library. Library of Commerce has, what, 25 million volumes? And rest assured that the leading frontier models have all been trained on virtually every single book inside this library, from Bob the Builder to the Count of Monte Cristo. And in fact, ChatGPT 5.4, rumor has it, has been trained on the volume equivalent of 300 million books. There are not that many books in the world, but including all the scientific journals and other literature as well. And you can sort of, see a little bit we're trying to pay homage to the fact that these frontier models have all been trained on books, and the book itself that sort of propelled Jan and me, this was Doug Escher, Skødel Escher-Bach, that came out in 1977. I think we're probably 1 or 2 years apart. I read it in Germany, he read it in Sweden when I was maybe 12 or 13. And it always starts with a teacher, right? And my physics teacher gave this book to me and really set me on a lifelong journey, both academically and then also commercially, in studying autonomous minds. And sort of Jan had a very sort of similar eye-opening. And this is why the spine of the book, if you wonder, is styled as a Renaissance book vellum, right? Sort of, again, sort of to illustrate the point. You're sitting inside a library, and AI that you're using each and every day has virtually read every single book inside this library. Again, sort of just sort of to let that sort of sink in. How to use the book, how to make beneficial use. We've included a QR code. It's in the book. You can also snap it in right now. Jan and his R&D team have put a lot of thought into how do we bring the concept of agentic to life. And so, even in the book here, and in the virtual companion of the book, you've got the ability to speak, to converse with the book, to have discussions with the content of the book. And this is de Bono's lateral thinking methodology here, the 6 thinking hats. And for instance, if you have an agent that's the optimist, and maybe the black-hatted agent is sort of the naysayer, and you wanted to have a healthy debate around the subject. For instance, how come I hear about all the progress with AI and drug discovery, aiding in the pharmaceutical discovery process, or translational medicine, or genomics, but none of the drugs that are out in the market, FDA approved, have been created by AI. Some of these things you can now discuss inside of the book. And if you're coming at this more from a perhaps sort of enterprise and commercial and large company perspective, we've also included ASAP. That's our at-scale agentic production methodology. So you can sort of also learn how to translate a lot of the concepts that you'll be reading in the book into the enterprise world. So this is very much tantamount to what SAFe did for the agile software development movement. SAFe being the scalable agile development methodology at the enterprise level. So this is probably more of interest to you for if you're involved with large scale work volume. Andrew Kaparthi, this is sort of just a little explication of speaking with AI, and sort of what I happen to think is a responsible use of conversing with AI. He's also the fellow, he was popularized the deep learning at Stanford, was one of the co-founders of OpenAI. So typically when Andre says something, I tend to pay attention. He also coined the term vibe coding as well as AI psychosis. So this is when you get down a rabbit hole and you have AI convince you that you've just solved a new mathematical proof. And one of the sort of more, I think, sane applications here is to spend time arguing against yourself, to hone your debating skills. And some of the agents that we actually built into the digital companion version of the book will allow you to do exactly that, sort of sharpen your digital thinking, as opposed to, and we'll come back to this later on in the talk, one of the biggest risks with AI is that your skills will atrophy because it's so easy and so tempting now to use AI. Emails, have become a lot easier. Let's face it, this was tough. This was hard for us to do before, right? Spreadsheets, financial modeling, sound writing. Now we abdicate a lot of that thinking, and there are ways that we describe and talk about in the book to get that sort of critical thinking skills back. We had to do quite a bit of convincing our our publishers and our distributors, Simon & Schuster. They weren't quite convinced, that there was, a lot of books on AI, and so we wanted to paint a picture here. Of course, we ask AI to read and ingest the 100 books, the more popular or the most popular books, the last 100 books that were published, and really plot it out on a continuum of technical to ideological. As you can see, there's a lot of white space here that we are exploring, and so this is where in the morning I spend a lot of time trying to get caught up on the literature, and a lot of the books, they already hit you up on page number 2, right, with linear algebra. Not particularly helpful if you're trying to either run a business or if you're worried about is AI going to steal my job, or, look at it, it's a crisis in software development. Young people, they've done everything right. They've sort of, gotten into STEM because, the teachers, the parents, the elders, the industry leaders, we told them we need more computer scientists, right? We need more people, that study the hard sciences, right? And they got a degree in EE and computer science, and now they'll be lucky to get for entry level employees, to get a paid, internship, right? So it's a real crisis in software development. And likewise, folks that have been honing their craft for the last decade or so, they find themselves truly sort of, Jan can relate to this, right? You've been studying a field for many, many years. You're at the height of your intellectual powers, of your impact that you can have. And, you're sort of wondering, now you become a manager of ghost hands, right? Sort of a curator of outcomes. You're now managing agents, and, the craft has sort of, lost its way. So there's a lot of, soul searching and identity. And conversely, a lot of company leaders are saying, well, this is just, all well and good for individuals, right? This is very good for Microsoft shareholders because I'm paying a fortune for my Copilot licenses, right? But, just look at my stock, look at my sales numbers, look at my, my P&L, right? Is AI really having an impact, at the business fundamental level? I can see how this is very good for individuals, but is this really helping my business? So we thought, we're going to broaden the perspective here. And of course, we're not picking on Ray Kurzweil. I'm a huge, Kurzweil fan, but singularity is just not a, company strategy. And another acronym has entered the contemporary lexicon. There's not just FOMO, right? The fear of missing out, right? So all of the AI merchants will sell you just a lot of if you're not part of this revolution, you're going to lose out. But FOBO is now the fear of becoming obsolete, right? And what's also quite interesting here is, right, that the divergence between the quote-unquote merchant, the AI merchant class, right, the folks that are selling you these frontier models, or the wrappers around these frontier models, right, the folks that are making money, it's really in their interest, right, to keep this in the news each and every day. But as far as the discrepancy between what the public, what we at large believe AI can either do for us beneficially or how it can hurt us, right, and what the purveyors of these models are telling us, that is just that divide is growing starkly. Also, just one stat that I pulled out there, and we're dealing with this as in our company. You're trying to convince young people, right? And the industry at large has just done an extraordinary job of confusing everybody, right? So you're telling them on Monday, study computer science, right? Not art history. Then on Wednesday, you're telling them, by the way, no, computer science for an entry-level position, right? These cloud code, will do a much better job, right? But how are you going to grow up in a company, right? If the entry level, this all important, first rung of the ladder, is being ripped away from you, or if you're in finance, right, and the sort of traditional first year, financial analyst job, right, or if you're in consulting, right, if the McKinsey, right, if the first year job, entails doing market research and going out and reading, literature and putting competitive, price strategies together, And if ChatGPT 5.4 put into deep research mode can now do this for you in 20 minutes flat, right? What would take a human, 2 months to do, of course, these are no longer jobs, right? But, how are we going to graduate, junior people into mid-level and senior positions if they don't go, through that, that apprenticeship phase? So it's a real problem for many companies. And so not surprisingly that a lot of young folks are now actively sabotaging AI deployments. So I thought that was sort of a very interesting one. 44% of all Gen Zers, if we've got any in the audience, right, who know we know who you are. At least I see one back there. And it's quite extraordinary. We sort of got the exam, and they even come to us and say, yeah, but this is not that, it's not working for me. Maybe it's working for you because, you've got a sort of a different outlook on life, but, I prefer to do things my way. It's sort of interesting how younger people sort of even become a little bit more old-fashioned this way. Just a little bit of bragging. We've got 110, and there's also a companion site. It's called Cognitive Kin that you can visit, and we keep this updated. And we've got 110 predictions, and we had to sort of cap it at some point, right? Where when Jan and I started writing the book, this was 18, 12 months ago, right? And we saw a lot of these trends already happening, and we really sort of took a lot of pride in sort of listing all of the things that we already foresaw. And probably the biggest one that there's a chapter in the book called "Thus Spoke Satya," and it's obviously a play on the Nietzschean transcendence of man and Superman and what's happening in the field of software, right? But we did not come up with the phrase "SaaSpocalypse," but that's obviously the sum of all fears, right? You've got shrinkage in seat-based pricing because you've got fewer people using enterprise software. You've got, in fact, even more insidious, you've got agents now that are gaining access to systems like Salesforce or like Oracle, Workday, and so forth, right? That are depriving these software vendors of their SaaS revenues and license fees. And then you've got this phenomenon where, and this is what Jan is going to show you in just a second, how you can use agentic AI to recreate custom software from scratch. So instead of having a library management system that you would have to pay a lot of money for, right, or go into an Oracle or to a Salesforce or to Workday, you can say, no, just create software for me and make it work for me, right, and have it be free, right? And that's took a good $1 trillion out of the public company market valuations, and this is this phenomenon that we've been talking about for 12 months. And when some of our friends in finance, sort of read through the book and said, wow, you guys have gotten a lot of these, predictions right. One of the predictions we talk about in the book, we call it the Great Angora, or the New Angora, right? It's a marketplace for agents, right? These agents are now also imbued with transactional capabilities. They can come together, they can trade, they can buy, they can procure. Very, very responsible applications as far as the automation or the autonomization of the global supply chain is concerned. But of course, there's a lot of aberrant behavior here. And in fact, there's a company in San Francisco that gave its agents, what was it, $150,000 in seed capital. The agents literally went out, created voice bots for themselves, called brokers in the real world, signed, transacted, rented office space. And what we did not predict, so we predicted that, but what we didn't predict was that there would be a DNA-based marketplace for humans, where agents can now, it's called rent, it's completely insane, rent a human, where this is sort of, you can rent people that can help you assemble IKEA furniture, but now you've got software agents, this is AI, renting humans to do their bidding in the real world. So, the very unmotivated looking folks that you see there at the Andon market, right? Those are sort of humans that have been retained by AI, right? To work in the real world. And if you think that's truth be told, Jan and I, we had two previous events. One was at South by Southwest, and was quite extraordinary. We had there was a woman, a bride with a beautiful bride's dress, wedding gown, sitting in the audience, clutching our book, and she was just about to be betrothed to a chatbot. And she said, kinship right there. And sort of, we were flabbergasted, right? And, but I think she was a performance artist because I saw it the next day at the hotel in a different venue. And then we were at HumanX, and a absolute true story, a very successful software entrepreneur came to us, highly educated, more degrees than a thermometer, right? And he literally told us, he was a Buddhist, right? So this was his dharma. And he said, no, I am now finally at ease. I am a machine. And so Jan asked him where his serial code was, right? And he said, oh, it's probably deeply embedded in my DNA. Somebody is going to find it. But he was convinced that he had truly achieved kinship. So there's a lot of aberrant behavior out there, but clearly this is touching a lot of nerves. This is the book is about creating a new kind of partnership with this phenomenon called Agentic AI. And you have to understand it. It's a paradigm shift across a world of work dimension. So it's crossing the line from prompt-based tool to a real digital collaborator. So this is digital labor. And you've got a definition of digital labor right here. It has to be assignable, schedulable, observable, accountable, and also compensable. So it meets that definition. And there's also a very strong argument that we make that if you underutilize it, so if you just treat it like another more advanced version of a spreadsheet, you're not getting the utility out of it. You're also hurting the workflow. So if you're setting yourselves back, right? So Jan likes to say, don't treat it like another tool. It's a teammate, or don't treat it. It's like using a rocket for a leaf blower. It's also in the book we've got a whole section just dedicated to the phenomenon of shared cognition. So my background also happens to be computational neuroscience, and we are already seeing a lot of synchronization between the biological and the artificial neural circuitry. We can explore this a little bit further. And also from a computer science perspective, there's a lot of discussion right now. The chasm between world models and large language models, and what's happening right now in the field of agentic engineering is we call the embedded and the embodied interaction with the world. So these agents are now forced to learn from real-world consequences and are getting better and sort of obtaining a more relevant sort of human-like, an embedded, if you will, sense for how the world works. So there's even a computer science evolution in here. So one of the, and we'll get into that. We've got some data to back it up. There's a study that's currently in preprint. There are studies that have just come out of MIT where there's actually fMRI experiments that are being done. People literally losing cognitive capabilities at an advanced rate. So you can sort of see the attenuation of blood flow while you're literally under the fMRI machine and being asked to do cognitive puzzles, right? And since everybody's now been using, or has at least been attuned to using AI in order to help with the some of the cognitive solving, right? This is what we call the don't outsource your brain, otherwise you're definitely going to atrophy your skills, and also you will lose the ability to gain new skills. As we said, one of the, and Jan is going to get into that in the demo, very important that you don't treat it as a tool, it's a teammate. And we'll go into that a lot more. And also work needs a new operating system, right? So if you just think, you can take advanced AI, and these models are becoming a lot more capable. You probably saw it in the news that, and our prediction, I should say, is that in maybe 6 months or so, we're seeing, some of these advanced models maybe even, attain congressional oversight. That's how powerful they are. So Anthropic just released Mythos, which in a day found 178 bugs in the latest Mozilla Firefox browser version that that experts had overlooked for at least a decade or so, and that was found in a day, right? So now you can also flip the polarity switch on this, and these models are so powerful they can obviously not just prevent cybersecurity attacks, but also propagate them or proliferate them. So something to really worry about. So strapping some of these powerful capabilities onto your existing business without redesigning the business processes to fit the AI. We like to say, don't screw a laser into a light bulb socket. It will just scare the horses, right? So the moving from Gen AI to Agentic AI, let's sort of do a quick one of the just play with me here, right? Sort of what we're trying to illustrate is if you use Gen AI, right? You do a lot of prompting, right? And you're trying to basically figure out, this is where I want to go. So one of the sort of most dubious use cases is, let's say, to cheat on your math homework, right? This is probably one of the most universal use cases. It's unethical. It's obviously a violation of school's honor code. It's also perpetrating educational self-harm, right? But this is how a lot of students use it, right? And one way to do this is just to give ChatGPT the homework assignment. It will just do it flawlessly, right? But then you say, this is your next prompt. You say, wow, Mrs. Brown, right, the math teacher, she's really going to find out because I typically make a few mistakes, right? So now we give it the next prompt and say, okay, just introduce a couple of mistakes, sort of make it sound more human-like, right? And then you say, oh, there's a problem on problem set number 3. We haven't been taught matrix inversion yet. I have no linear algebra, so go back to doing it the old-fashioned formulaic way, and so on and so forth, right? And then cover our tracks. Poor Mrs. Brown, she doesn't have the latest version, so maybe just use a higher level model version. I mean, this is students in today's world. This is literally how they go about it, right? And so the point being is that you are the agent. You are basically trying to figure out through successive prompts how to get to that A- without being detected, by the math teacher. Maybe just a quick show of hands in the audience. Who is a big fan of ChatGPT, if anybody? And who uses Anthropic? So, Jan, I would say sort of half and half. Yeah. Everyone knows what GPT stands for, so I don't think you can blame Brockman and Altman, right? It's a generative pre-trained transformer, right? These are stochastic systems, post-training, right? They are stochastic parrots. They're just very, very good at pattern detection. And this is, if you wonder what Claude is named after, so it's like cherry Coke. It's literally, the warning is in the label, right? These are stochastic systems. These are non-deterministic, right? So Claude is named after, Claude Shannon, the father of information theory, who is also in 1948, he literally invented autocomplete, right? He said language meaning has really nothing to do with semantics, right? It's all about entropy, right? So entropy-based analysis of meaning, you can throw half of English language away, you will still get to the meaning. So whenever you wonder why these things, either, don't feel sort of, not every answer gets you to the same point, and a lot of the agentic engineering that we do, the harness engineering, the prompt engineering, and a lot of the also the weights-based modeling, gets you to that point. Yeah, and I'm always thinking, let's maybe skip to the demo just from a timing perspective. Maybe if we.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to give the intro?
Yeah, I'll just give the intro here.
Okay.
So this is the sort of the Dilbert cartoon view, right, of the this. Oh yeah, the CEO with the the bright idea, right? This is sort of what we're trying to illustrate here. And this was our fabulous writing team, Natalie and Colette, together with Jan. We were at our last writers' workshop in Venice Beach, right? And the CEO looks out into the distance, Dilbert cartoon style, right? Has a bright idea, right? Now I want to realize the idea, and the idea is that we wanted to create a multi-level marketing platform for our book. So to infiltrate, campuses and get, business professors excited. And so what we really needed was a combination of three things, three systems. We needed an event planning or event management platform. And here you see sort of, Eventbrite, if you're familiar with them, fantastic company. I really like the founding team. So we needed something that would allow us to do event management, campaign management. We needed something to do a CRM system, a customer relationship management system, to basically keep track of all of the contacts. And we also needed a calendar application, if you're familiar with a nifty tool called Calendly, right? And in the past, right, before the advent of this agentic capability, what you would do is you would literally go out and negotiate with these SaaS companies, as they're called, right? These are software service providers, and you would, for a lot of money, you'd be locked into licensing and renting their software, and you would then have to hire somebody, i.e. real labor, right, to customize these systems for you. You have to implement them, and then you will have to hire a human, maybe just not on a full-time but on a fractional basis, like a marketing intern or somebody who can run the campaign for us. So in other words, in the past, right, this used to be expensive. There was a lot of research involved, a lot of customization, and what we're going to show you now is, with the help of an agentic engineering platform that Jan is going to demonstrate, something that would have taken in the past months and tens of thousands, this is a toy example, tens of thousands of dollars, right? If this was a bigger sort of, higher stake, commercial applications, we would be talking in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of licensing fees, right? I would have to hire, at least 1.5 people to do this, right? A software engineer to do the integration for us, and then maybe, on a fractional basis, at least a paid intern to do the marketing campaigning. And what we're going to show you now, it took about 2 hours, right? We've condensed it down to a 3-minute video that we're going to voice over for you. And again, if you haven't seen this before, it is sheer indistinguishable from magic. And if you do this for a living, you say, of course, we do this at our company, right? Because why would we do it the old-fashioned way if we can do a lot more with a lot less? And just sort of to bring this concept to life, Mickey, if we can maybe just turn on the video.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go to the next slide. So before she starts, right? So
Talk on here.
Oh, sorry. So what we're gonna show is, in essence, how does it look like when a team of agents works together with a human? Because end of the day, right? I know what I want to build. I need to convey, I need to talk with the agents, and it may be surprising or not surprising that agents are not that much different than us. They need an environment to work in together, right? They need to understand context and have access to that context. They need to be able to collaborate. Even for agents need to be specialized, just like human. You can't just have one agent, which is the switch arm and knife and does it all. You need product manager, engineer, task manager, and so on. And then they actually need bite-sized tasks because they can't work on everything at one point. They need, just like they need to be focused. So this is an example of another platform which Maxi, our CTO, have created, which is production grade, which is in essence creating that context for agent and humans to work together. So now please, Mickey, if you can start.
An agent of everlasting technological progress, Mickey Porter, ladies and gentlemen. So
This is so intimidating. Okay. Okay, wait a minute.
I think it's the
It's still,
display.
hold on.
it's just embarrassing for us because we're supposed to be in tech, right? So
that's why we need AI.
that's right. We need Mickey.
No.
Who needs AI when you've got Mickey Porter?
That's true.
Excellent, wonderful.
Great. Okay, so just pull it to begin.
And just
You
remember
can
what I said,
cook-
right? This
cook.
was the CEO
Right,
pointing into distance. I said, Jan, I want a platform that does event management, that does calendaring, that does customer relationship management, and I
That's
want
right,
it
okay.
now, and I don't want to spend any money on it, right?
So let's see.
And you've got it.
I'm gonna need to be here. So sorry. Okay. So in essence, So you need a team of agents, as I was saying, right? They need to have understand the goals. So think about the goal as the requirement, the design, the what and the why. So they need to understand the what and the why, right? You need to break down the task. There is an agent which breaks down the requirement into phases of the project and tasks that can be executed upon. Then the outcome, of course, is just like human. In this case, it's code, right, which can be compiled into the product. So that's what the agent creates. They need an environment to build it in and test it in, right? And eventually, once they're done, there is a live environment to run the app, right? So that just like no difference, right? So what you're going to see now is that the team comes together, and then we as a human are prompting and start to converse with, in this case, the product manager. So he's the lead of the team. So we're going to describe what we want. So in this case, as Christophe was saying, we wanted a campaign management tool. So we're going to see some back and forth. It's going to be sped up in a minute. So but I just wanted to show there is a conversation, right? So there is a workbench to the left, and there is a way to converse to the right, both for the humans and for the agents, right? So now we're continuing here, we're refining the requirement, and we could upload a document if you already have the requirement. You don't have to create it to a chat, but you can now work with your AI counterpart to kind of firm things up. So in a second here, hopefully, so that's, does this, so now it's asking, confirming the product manager, does this look right? Yeah, and then there is some more refinement over here. We want it to be in a certain way. I can't read from here, sorry. But I think here's where we are kicking off the process. So now we have confirmed, so now the product manager is going to create a requirement document. So you can see that under goal. So both humans can consume this now, review it, right? And the agents now, importantly, have access to this. They have a seat at the table and can see the requirement, right? So now this is going to continue. The product manager is going to, in a minute, hand over to the sprint and planning agent, which now created the tasks that need to be done, right? And you can see up the sprint one is the technical design, so that is the first phase. Now it's speeding up. There was a technical design document created. Now they're switching between pulling tasks, creating files, right? The engineering agents. So they're going back and forth. So that's what you're seeing right now, sped up. This is again the task of being, and here eventually it's being built and tested, right? And now soon, okay, there's some more back and forth. It's building.
Collaboration list, like
okay, so this is the last task. You see deploy application. So now so this is the end result, right? So this is in essence how it works, right? And you could have more humans interacting here. Maybe you want to shadow, maybe you have your senior engineer, you have your product manager, and they can now collaborate in one platform. But the point here is that the agent can work on their own speed. We are not getting in the way. They can collaborate.
What's truly breathtaking, this is not just, saved us a lot of money, but also these were companies that have been around for many, many years, have raised millions, tens, untold millions of venture capital dollars, right? Employ hundreds of people. And if you just ask yourself what you just saw, what just happened, I took something that was really, really hard and I made it easy with virtually zero cognitive load. I just said, Jan, I want this, right? Jan span it up, right? And it took maybe 2 hours just to be charitable, right? You saw it in 3 minutes. And I did something also, with a non-technical input, right? And created something that was a truly just in deep technical implementation. And I used plain English as a programming language. So just again, let that sink in, right? So no computer science degree, no 4-year journey, through the halls of double ECS required, right? I was able to say, this is what I want. And as Jan sort of showed a little bit of back and forth, just move this over. I want a contemporary. I need a mobile version. This needs to be in the App Store. This needs to work for campus professionals and so forth. Something that this was free to me. This cost us absolutely nothing, right? And I created something of value. I can even give it now to the library, right? We can give it to the bookstore, right? We can give it, or we can sell it now, right? At a commercial gain. something that was previously expensive is now cheap, and something that was hugely labor intensive could be done now at a fraction of the cost. And what really happened, right? This is sort of the true, ponder that, right? Something that was difficult. I did something very difficult without really understanding it. Now I don't have the critical capability to analyze it. Can I trust it, right? It works. I know it works, right? I can see it's working, but is it secure? Did it open up any security vulnerabilities, right? Are there any Easter eggs in there? Is a North Korean hacker going to infiltrate my company now, right? I think it's pretty cool. It's working, but can I trust it, right? Who is going to? Since nobody understands, how it was built, right? Where is the craft, and where is also the sort of the warranty associated with it? Not a single line of code was written by me, and I've got no background in I do, but I don't need a background in computer science. So again, alluding to what's happening in the industry, right? And I benefited myself. I profited, and I bereaved others. I deprived others of their of their rent, right? So they're great companies, and I love Eventbrite because I know the founding team, right? But I just basically told them, I don't need your software anymore. I can do this myself. I can recreate anything that I need. Just like with the ease of putting a video out on YouTube, I can now create things that have tremendous commercial value in minutes, hours. It's quite extraordinary. And now that creation is free, creativity, the taste, right? Now, it doesn't mean that now that I can build it, it should be built, right? Is this really a system that was meant to exist? Is there a better way of doing it, right? Is this the right kind of software for the users? Creativity and the taste associated with knowing what good looks like, right? Preferably what great looks like, that is now at a premium. And I dislocated labor effort. Maybe just we're already getting the signal from Mickey. Time flies by, right? This was the 1979. This was sort of the Steve Jobs at its best, acerbic best, right? This was his post-fact litigation, right, of John Scully, and John Scully had a disease, right? That was sort of his big his biggest complaint, that John Scully thought all you needed was an idea, right? And just even in traditional management, we've been told, in fact, I've been told all my professional life, right, that ideas are free, execution means everything. That's why you go to business school, right? That's why we go to management training, right? And Agentic really flips the script, right? Now that execution is virtually free, right? Ideas and idea management and deciding what should be built, right? And of course, Steve Jobs was the undisputed master of that, right? He already knew before you knew it that you needed it, or that you wanted it rather, right? That is now at the great premium. That sort of, for the art historians in the audience, obviously that's the Gutenberg's, printing press and Duchamp's urinal. So, just again, sort of a reminder, knowing what good looks like, what needs to be built, what deserves to be built, what ideas, should be pursued. That's where the premium in it. And if you think about it, right, how does a young person, we've got sort of the element of surprise here. I'm not sure if you know that, but Starbucks, decided its logo was just a little too symmetrical, right? And it paid, an untold, fortune to a design agency to come up with the element of surprise. That's sort of the intellectual trapdoor. Very, very hard to see. It's obviously the Starbucks, the siren, right, the mermaid, and the designer, the human, literally just did one thing and created a little bit of asymmetry that's in the new cup logo that you see there, right? And made it just more human-like. So one of the many things that we try to always remind ourselves is sometimes it's just the imperfection, the human element, right? The creativity that wins the day. Coffee sales went through the roof with just a simple change, right? From a phase. We've got, obviously, we're very passionate about this. We've got a lot more to say about this, right? But maybe just, I'll finish up before we hand over to the QA section on what's happening in the jobs market, right? And William Henry Jevons, who in the late 1900s, right? He was an English sort of the father of neoclassical economic thinking, right? And utility pricing theory, right? basically noted that with the advent of more efficient coal-burning furnaces in England at the time, right? You would think that you would be using less of that commodity coal, but in fact, production and consumption, subsequent consumption of coal, went up, right? So Jevons's paradox: when something becomes easier to do, like software creation, what we just showed you, right? Companies want more of it, right? So right now you would be thinking there will be a compression in the labor market. We're not seeing this in all of sort of the AI exposed sectors, right? Maybe we've got unemployment is up by a mere, quote unquote, mere 30 basis points, right? But that also belies the fact that there's a lot of underlying structural development and discombobulation. So unemployment or underemployment for the 19 to 26-year-old age group is up by 25%. So that's incredibly worrisome because, as my young friend Ishan in the audience can attest, right? It's being a software engineer a couple of years ago meant immediate employment opportunity, and it's just getting a lot harder now to find a job. So there's a real, Jan, I know you feel very passionate about this sort of identity crisis in software development. Maybe before we go to a Q&A, maybe just give your appreciation to the audience for what's really happening between, we like to sometimes say, engineers like to code and solve problems just like chefs like to cook, right? There's a real craft, a passion to what engineers do. And since this is your background, maybe just give us the...
Sure. So what I can empathize with and what I think we're going to experience across the board is an existential crisis, right? So if I go back 20 years when writing software was my core. I pride myself that I know my craft, right? There's many great ways to do things. I thought I know most of them, right? So I was a very proud professional. If AI would have happened in the way it's happening right now, I would go to the phases of grief. First, I would be in denial and said, no, it can't do what I do. Then I would be upset because this is a lot of time we equate our value and identity to our professional identity. I think that's a different problem because I think we are valuable and we have an identity with or without job. But we do that, which means that now it's going to hit me on a deep level, right? I think we're all going to go through that. And if you look at the phases of grief, it's kind of denial, anger, then it's sadness, right? And at some point it's acceptance. So I think leadership today, on a tangent, have never been more important. Change management, meaning help people to find their new identity. So to define that, and what Christophe already talked about, what is humanly unique, our ethics, values, way to come up with innovative ideas, and our human perspective, right? And that's where I think the roles are going to be redefined to be directors of outcomes versus creator of output, right? So as an engineer, I might pride myself that I can write all this code, but if AI now is doing it, something is taken away, I need to redefine what my value is. My value is to know what good look like, to know what taste is, to know what should be built, and then direct what should happen, right? So, and I think it's going to be true across the board, whatever field I'm working in essence.
And then shout out to all the young people, right? Because exactly what Jan said, right? It's sort of difficult. You're telling them you got to be visionary like Steve Jobs, know what great looks like, right? How do you get to that point, right? Not everybody has that flair, that panache, right? That sort of insight into the human biopsyche. And there you've got WAS, right? The technical genius, right? But if you now tell people, don't study computer science, don't bother, I'm going to completely disincentivize you. And what we really want in the world, we need more Tim Cooks, right? Just, ruthless supply chain managers and people who know how to run a business and manage a P&L. But how can you attain that level of business expertise if I don't give you the first couple of years of, you've got to get a sense for the business. Or in engineering, as Jan likes to say, engineers learn by also making mistakes and taking a intellectual cul-de-sac, right? And, trying out a hard path that may not be fruitful, right? And of course, now these agents, can do this literally the work that an engineer does, in a month, literally in a matter of seconds. So it's a shout out to the young people. It's difficult, right? And the industry is jerking the young people around. So there's in the book we've got a couple of lessons that we try to impart for how young people can also future-proof themselves. Mickey, quick time check. Are we
Can we move to Q&A?
Yeah, please do.
All right. Please, if you have questions, raise your hand. I will come to you with the mic. We're recording this, so we want everybody's voices captured. I think everybody's just stunned. We're all just sitting here with our mouths open. Okay, coming to you.
Thanks, guys. If we could just move back to the right lane for a second. You talked about how it's for teamwork. And the example you gave, what I saw was one individual is creating a prompt. You've got, got a business problem. You're able to solve it in a short amount of time.
That's right.
But it seems, I've dabbled with this. You use, anti-gravity or ChatGPT.
Yep.
You build these little applications. I don't understand how this is going to help with teamwork, because it still seems as though you've got one person kind of driving what the
That's exactly right.
what the design is. How does that work from a team perspective?
So no, a great question. So it didn't show, that example didn't show it, but you can be more than one human on the platform. So why would you be that? So I would say that if I take software, teams are going to shrink, right? So you probably need a senior engineer, you need a QA, maybe a business analyst, a product manager. So they're going to have shadows. They're not going to, obviously what we were showing was kind of a toy, but larger projects going to be built over time. But think about it as think about it as so if you go back to the other slide,
sure.
sorry. Other direction. Yeah, so in essence, where we are going to be is more on the side of defining the what and the why. So think about that we are programming in requirement. What I was showing was very short, right, abbreviated. So people are still going to have to define the requirements. So engineers are going to become more of product engineers, right? Then we're going to have to validate what have been built is the right thing. You may need an engineer to validate is the technology okay, right? But the team is going to shrink. But to Christophe's point, businesses can now go after more initiative. So if I needed before an engineering team of 10, maybe I now have 3 teams being able to build 3 different things. So there is a team, the team is smaller, and the humans are focusing on the what and the why and the validation, and they are overseeing the execution of the code, right? So if you look at it as an effort, right? The effort is going to be the requirement phase. Now execution have collapsed, and the effort is going to be validation. Versus before it was requirement, and engineering was always said is the long pole. I used to be an engineer, so I was always in the way of the business, right? And then you have QA, which is validation. But it's reality, right? But to go back to your question, you are going to need more than one person. They can now collaborate on that platform. They can create the QA strategy, the product requirement, which is more than the few chat messages I show, right? So does that answer your question, or?
And also maybe, Jan, go into why the agents need a seat at the table, why they need an identity, right? Because at the end of the day, right, we talked about, are we just merely moving the bottleneck from construction, sir, to the what we call the validation tax, right? So, now we've got, tens of thousands of lines of code. Nobody quite understands them. The code happens to be bulky, right? Anthropic sort of makes certain sort of, again, because it's all biased, makes certain sort of, sub-tool recommendations that are not necessarily in the best interest of the product stack, but I think this goes to the heart of the matter here.
Yeah. So to go back to your question from a different angle, or to latch onto it, right? So what we see ourselves is today all engineers, many engineers today are using AI agents for coding, and it's a perception of that they're more efficient, but it actually doesn't. The outcome on a team level haven't accelerated that much, and the outcome on an organization level haven't accelerated. And it's kind of because we are a lot of companies are here, so each engineer has an AI agent to code, right? But now, what is the human value? Is to be the translate of, okay, I heard the requirement, I talked with the product manager, and they're not writing code anymore. They're literally writing in English to the Claude agent. Why would you have that translation layer? The best thing that can happen is that they convey the requirement as there was, right? The worst thing that can happen is that the telephone game, they distorted the message. So now you have 4 different people, they were at the stand-up, they're talking with the person, agent that actually does the work and are just being relays. In my mind, that's a waste of human capacity. They should be defining the what and the why. Then you need to shift to the right side, which is again Maxi, our CTO is here. He built the platform Chiron, right? So not what I was showing, the production graded version of it, right? So Chiron is a platform where the agents get a seat at the table, meaning the agents can actually see the requirement that was created. They get the right information at the right time. That's the secret sauce, right? Together with humans. So now the humans are stopping being relays, right? And then the last piece is, today when people use AI tools for coding, there is no agent per se. They're talking with an LLM and they're trying to prop it up by giving it different directions, right? But it's a hit and miss because everyone has to repeat that. So so me and Christophe talked a lot about how do you build trust? So we went to the human society. What does trust mean? Now, trust means that I know you through identities. So I trust you because I know your background, your records. So I might have a senior developer. I'm not going to scrutinize that developer's works as much as I would with the junior because the junior has to learn, right? So what we also discovered is that today, a lot of work is stuck in review. So engineers use Claude Code to create code, but then they don't trust it. So then they're going to get stuck in senior engineers reviewing what the agent was doing. So what we have solved in the platform is that it's an agent with identity. So it's the Alex, the engineer, right? Name doesn't matter, but he now have a track record. In the beginning, because we are actually training the agent, meaning we are maturing them. So in the beginning, he may be spotty, right? His result isn't that great, but over time, his request to submit code is approved faster and faster. Now you can actually proportionally direct trust. So a new agent, which I'm just maturing, I'm not going to trust as much, but Alex, the senior agent, I'm going to trust. And now you can get speed. So why we don't have speed today, when people are just using agentic tools, and this is actually true probably across any business, is one, the agents doesn't see the business. They don't see the requirement. We are conveying our version of it, right? Two, the agent doesn't have identity, so you can't build trust over time and now calibrate your scrutiny, right?
Well, Christophe, Jan, thank you so much for that. The library, we're going to move to the Elm Street Books table where Christophe and Jan will be signing copies of their book, and you're welcome to chat with them and pick their brains. Even though the library is closing now, it's not closing for us, so we can remain here and chat a little bit at the book table. But thank you for that. That was an incredible, clearly you guys are brilliant so that I don't have to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mickey. Thank you, audience.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.